All right, everyone. Hello and welcome back. We are going to continue on the time tracker app. So this is our Xamarin.Forms tutorial. Last time we were into the base repository of the iOS project. We had an issue with this Firebase, saving an item. And so I did a little I looked into it a little bit and I saw that this issue was with the convert method. So what we need to do is head over to our extensions, and we're going to change this. We're not going to use Newtonsoft anymore. So we're going to end up deleting that. But for now, let's go ahead and make this return an NS dictionary. And then you might need to use a quick fix. I was already kind of messing with this, so I did use a quick fix already. This NS dictionary needs the key type to be NS string, and we need the value type to be NS object. And so then this will no longer apply, so we can just kind of comment this out, and we're going to delete it when we're done. But what we do need is an NS dictionary return type, so we can make our dictionary. So we'll say var dict equals new NS dictionary, and this will be of type NS string and NS object. Dang it, I didn't start recording, so I have to start all that over. All right, sincerest apologies. Here we go again. I got to start recording. Okay, here we go again. So welcome back. So last time we had an issue with the base repository. It wasn't saving the document as we would expect. And so I did a little digging, and it looks like it's this item.convert method. And so we can leave this code the same for now, but we need to head over to the extensions, identifiable extensions, and we need to change this. So we're going to make this change, and it's going to return an NS dictionary. And you might need to import a using for foundation. And then the key type for this NS dictionary needs to be an NS string. And the value type needs to be an NS object. So with that, all the rest of this is pretty much garbage, so we can just delete it. And then we can recreate our dictionary. Oh, I see Samo joined. Hey Samo, I'm going to type it because it'll be sooner. So we'll create our dictionary. So we'll say var dict equals new NS dictionary. And of course this will be NS string and NS object. And then we can return that. So we'll just drop a couple lines and return that. And now in here we can start our item conversion. So just for a moment, let's I'm going to open this test data model just so I can, see these properties again. And so we need a string, an int, a double, a boolean. We're already going to take care of string, and we need this date time. And I think that was kind of the issue, either the int, double, or date time. But we can just stick with the NS dictionary. Oh, thanks, Samo. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm having fun too, so thanks. So what we need to do in here is we need to convert. We could have kept that, that conversion that we had, but so we need to convert this item to a dictionary so that we can go through each value and get its type. So let's do that. So we'll say var JSON string, just like last time, equals newtonsoft.json convert, and then we'll serialize this object, and then we'll deserialize it into just the C# dictionary. So we'll say this is the property dictionary is fine, and so var property dict equals newtonsoft again .json. We'll use JSON convert, but then we'll deserialize this time. And this will be deserialized object with a typed parameter. And that typed parameter is going to be a dictionary of type object. Well, it can be string object. And then this will take in the JSON string. And I needed one more of these little carets. All right, and there we are. So we have our property dictionary. So what we should do now is go through each key in the dictionary. So we can say for each var, and we can call it k or key, in property dict dot keys. And so for each key, we're going to grab the ns string key. So this will be var ns key is the variable name we can use. And we'll say var ns key equals new ns string. And then in here we'll just use key because that's getting parsed to a string anyway from JSON convert. So that'll give us our ns key. And then we want to get our ns object, ns val, so that'll be the variable name we'll use. So ns object, ns val, and for now that could equal null. And then we want to go through hold on, just checking comments. So then we want to go through and make sure that we can map each of these object types. So let's say var value, and this var value will equal our property dict, so our property dictionary, and that'll be just, we're going to retrieve the value for the key, so just the regular key, not the ns key. And so now we have our value. And so now we can do a couple if statements. So we can say if value is, and if it's a regular string, we can just say str. So if it is just a regular string, then of course this is the easiest. And what we could do is say nsval equals new ns string. And this will be value. Nope, this will be str. So that'll map our ns value from a C# string. So that's perfect. So the next one we want, so we can just check, so else if, and then we can check for a double value. So we can say if value is a double, and then we can just say, you know, dbl val or something, doesn't matter. So if it does parse to a double, then we'll say nsval equals, and we'll say new ns number. And ns number can take in all sorts of types, and so we'll just give it double val, and so that'll infer that it's a double. So that's good. Else if, so we also need boolean, so we can say if value is bool val is fine. Then we can say nsval equals new ns number again, and then this will take in our bool val. And then here's where it gets kind of, you know, kind of tough. Oh, hold on one second. Hey, nice to see you. There's a big delay, so I'll type it as well. All right, so the integer is kind of an issue because it's not actually an object. So what we need to do is see if we can parse this value as an int 32. So we'll say else if, and then we'll say int 32 dot parse. Well, we'll say try parse. And so if we can parse this value, and we'll just say out int and int val is fine. We need value to be a string. So we'll say value.toString. So if this parses, then we can safely say nsval equals new ns number to make it an ns object, and that'll be of int val. So that handles string, double, bool, int, And now we need that date time. So this is another tricky one. And so this one's not going to be kind of a one-liner. This one's going to take some braces. So we can say else if value is date time, and then we can just call this DTVal or something. So if it's a date time, we need to use an NS date formatter to turn this date time string into an NS date. So that probably sounds terrible, but it's not that hard. And so here's what we'll do. So we'll first create our date formatter. So we can say var formatter equals new NS date formatter. We can set the format. So formatter.date format. And then this just takes in a string. So we can just do something like, a 4-digit year, a 2-digit month, a 2-digit day. We'll use capital H's for the hours. And then we don't need colons or anything, but we can use them. It doesn't matter. So 2-digit capital H, or 2 capital H's for the 24-hour format for hour. Then we'll do 2-minute and 2-second. So now from here we can get the date string. So we can say var dt string or dt str equals, and we can just use the C# method for this, toString. And we can provide that same kind of format. So instead of duplicating it, let's just give it its own variable. So we'll say var date format equals, and we will got an extra set of quotes, but basically we're going to just make this its own variable so that if we change it once, it changes in both places. And then we'll replace this string for a date format. And then we'll do the same here, so because we can reuse it basically. So date format. So what we did was, instead of typing in this year, month, day, twice, so if we needed to change this or wanted to change this, we'd have to change it twice. Instead of that, we'll set it to its variable and just use the variable. So this will give us a DT string. And so from the DT string, now we can parse our date. So we can say nsval equals formatter.parse. And so what this will do is take in a string for a date, and it will return an NS date, and that's what we want. So we'll say formatter.parse, and we can do our DT string, which is our string version of our date, and then that'll return it into the NSVal. So that handles all data types that we need right now. And so what we should do, since we have a bunch of if and else ifs, but no just catch-all else, we should make sure NSVal is not null. So under that, we'll say if NSVal does not equal null, then we can add it to the dictionary. One thing we'll notice though is we can't actually add anything to the dictionary. The reason for that is this dictionary is not mutable. It is an immutable dictionary. So let's scroll up to our declaration for dict, and let's say it equals new NS mutable dictionary. So that's M-U-T-A-B-L-E. So this allows us to add things to it and remove things to it. So now that we have a mutable dictionary, we can say if NSVal does not equal null, we can say dict.add. Now we have this method. And now it wants a key and a value. So we have our NS key and we have our NS value because it's not null. Now we get an error with returning a mutable dictionary because it's not the same type. And that's fine. So what we can do is we can return a new, and this will be an NS dictionary. We're not going to return a new, actually, because NS dictionary has an awesome method. So we can say return NS dictionary, and let's still do NS string, NS object, but now we can say from objects and keys, and this is perfect. So from objects and keys needs two arrays. It needs an array of objects and an array of keys. And so we can do that just by saying dict.values, right? Because that returns an array of objects. And we can say dict.keys because that returns an array of objects, and that's perfect. But the one thing we don't want to do is send the ID as a document property because that's going, this ID should be null anyway. So let's remove that. So the very first thing we'll do is check to see if key is equal to ID. So before anything, at the top of that for each, we'll say if key.equals, and this is ID. So if it does, let's just continue. Let's not add it at all. Let's just go to the next property. So that's what that does. So that'll stop ID from being mapped. It'll map everything else, and now we can test it. So doing this, we shouldn't have to change anything in BaseRepository because BaseRepository is already using the item.convert method. Just returning NS dictionary should change which method we're using because it's overridden or overloaded. So I'm going to press run and let's see if it works. And again, it seems like I have this super awesome build delay, but I think after it builds the first time, it'll build a little bit better moving forward. All right, here it goes. Well, I thought it was going. I guess maybe not. Oh, here it goes. Yep. So basically what we're going to do, so in our time clock page model, we do have this save, and it's not providing an ID, which we're going to address next, by the way. But anyway, so we're going to try to save this to Cloud Firestore, which I have open, so we can see if it works. But let's log in with our test user. Hey, nice to see you. Thanks, Mohammed. Okay, and so we come to this. It's finally making it into this method to see if error is null, and it is, which means it was successful. And so then we'll get to the next breakpoint, and we'll see that result is true, and so that's good. And we can continue through that, and now we want to open our Firestore. So I have that here, and it did create a new document. So the first document I had in here is still there, and the next document is a new document, and it's here as well. So this is good. This means our save method is working. There is one issue though. So we're not getting this ID back, and we can. So let's go ahead and get that ID back, and at least be able, we don't need to use it on the test data, but we do need a way to get that ID back because later if we want to delete something, we need to delete it by its ID. So I'm going to stop the app. And then in BaseRepository, when we're making this call to add document, we see that it returns a document reference, and that's actually really good for us. So we can just say var docref equals. And so saying var docref equals, I wonder, so one option is to, I wonder if it'll, I don't think it will, right? Docref. I'm going to try this. Yeah, it doesn't exist yet. So we need to kind of brainstorm this a little bit. We need this document reference ID before we set this value. Let me just try one thing. Let me see if this has a async. Nope, it doesn't have an async. All right, so I guess just for the quick win, what we'll do is we'll make this an asynchronous method. That way we can have another task completion source that will take the ID that we can pass back, and from there we can probably just return the Boolean. I should have done this before we streamed. Maybe I will. Let's not do this. So just delete that. I'll do this in another episode so that I'm not kind of wasting your time with new ideas. So I'm going to leave this doc ref in here because we will use this, and I'm going to mark it with a to-do. And so to-do, we need to retain the doc ID. That is a to-do item, but I'm not going to waste time here. Because the next thing, I mean, we still have the entire Java mapping to do. So let's do that. We're going to head over to the Android side, and we need to do the mapping from Firebase, Cloud Firestore to our Java or C# objects. And then we also need to convert back. We need to be able to convert our C# objects to something that Cloud Firestore can use. So let's get into that. So in our Android project, we have services. And in here, let's do the base repository as well. So we'll right-click services, add new class, and this will be a base repository. Okay, and it's going to be pretty similar to the iOS version in that it needs a typed parameter, and then it'll extend our iRepository, and that takes in an identifiable. So let's just copy the rest of this line here, and let's paste it. And then we need to use a quick fix to bring in the iRepository namespace as well as the iIdentifiable namespace. And then let's also make our class abstract. And one of your quick fixes should have been to implement the interface. So that's good there. And now we need to implement get all, and save, as well as do the object type mapping back and forth. And then we should be able to test it in the time clock page model on an Android. So I'm going to take a quick maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to put it on like a short intermission, and then I'll be right back. So it'll be about 5 to 10 minutes. I'll also be monitoring the chat while we're on that break, because I got to start the emulator and all that stuff. But then we'll be right back, and we'll proceed to the Java side of it. Actually, I'm going to end this stream because I see that YouTube is giving me some kind of error saying that I'm not sending a high enough bit rate, and so it's choppy maybe for you guys. So I'm going to end this stream. I'm going to try to fix that error, and then I'm going to come back hopefully with a better stream. So that's it for this one. We didn't do a whole lot, but we got the iOS saving working, and then I'll catch you here in a few minutes.